In this video, I'm going to share with you 5 tips to try and make gold before the January patch of New World. So let's start with the simple ones. The first thing you want to do is to spend your winter conversion tokens. So all the presents, you want to convert them into tokens, and you want to buy things from the store that you can sell. And there's 2 obvious options for you to buy. One of the things you can buy is the food. Now it might only show an attribute of 1, but that actually scales with your level and it gives you 33 of each stat respectively. The common one that a lot of people are suggesting you buy is the intelligence food, because the actual 40 version of that is very expensive and that is the next best. But you could also maybe look at the dexterity. Buy this food and you can either sell it immediately or wait. If you wait, people might forget about it, but if you sell it immediately, you might get the sales, but it might not be for the most value that it would go for. It's a little bit questionable of when to sell. Another thing that I don't see very often is the patterns. Now, the patterns from the Winter Convergence store aren't seemingly very useful. They are essentially cosmetic only, because it still depends on the crafter's role. So you still need to have the trophies, the outfits, and all that kind of good stuff. However, these patterns may go up in value, as a lot of people aren't necessarily buying them now, but the rarity might increase later on, maybe in like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, something like that. Again, that's speculative and we don't really know if they will go up in value or not. But either way, your presents will definitely go away. I think the tokens will probably also go away, although I'm not 100% sure about that. And we know that the Winter Convergence is going to end on January the 25th, which is also then likely when the Expedition Mutator patch will go live. So get in, do that now, don't wait around any longer. And then tip number 2, just before the Expedition Mutator patch goes live, what you want to do is then pay for your tax. Ideally, if you can try and time it so that your taxes like ran out at that time, great. But if you don't have that option, just see if you can pay for your tax literally the night before that patch is going to go live, because the tax is essentially going to go back up to its normal value. They're actually toning down how much the tax can be, but essentially it's going to be back to normal, so maybe like 1,000 gold, etc. So you want to get in there and pay your tax as late as you can, but make sure you do it before the patch. Now the next ones are sort of speculative. Now I just want to clarify that this is not financial advice and I'm not a financial advisor. Well, I guess maybe I'm a New World financial advisor, but basically if you lose your gold, don't blame me. Like, it's speculative, that's just the way things go. One thing you might have seen in the market is that the Pristine Gems have seemingly gone up in price, because in the Expedition Mutators, the gemstone dust is going to become more relevant, partly because it's used as a consumable and partly because it's used to craft the key for the Expedition Mutators. So what I would say is, from now until the patch, if you do maybe like any elite runs or any mining and you get some Pristine Gems, I think it might be wise to hold on to them, because I sort of suspect that in the first week or 2 that the price of them might go really high. Again though, it might already be that it's peaked and it might come down because people are already aware of this. It's really hard to say. And the next 2 things are things that I think it might be worth buying and just holding on to for some period of time. How long that is, I don't know, but we'll see. The obvious one is the vial of suspended Azoth or Azoth, and that's because when we look at the patch notes, they said that they are going to reduce the amount of vials of suspended Azoth that you get from the crafting aptitude chests. So for the first notch, I think you're not going to get any, and then for the subsequent ones you're going to get less. So this is basically meaning that there's going to be less in the market. So I sort of suspect that the vials of suspended Azoth will go up in price. In fact, on my server, when the patch was revealed, the price went from about 20 gold straight up to 40 gold and is now back at 20 gold. However, I suspect in a couple of weeks, maybe about a month's time, that we're probably going to be looking at 30, 40 gold. That's on my server, whatever that equates to on your server. So there's some profit to be had if you can store it. If you don't want to take that risk, then don't. And the next one is an Arcana region. Basically, this is a little bit complicated, but I think a lot of people are going to be making the topaz gypsum potions because it's a little bit easier to get to make those, because you're going to be able to make them from an Arcana station. And I think the gypsum is going to be more worthwhile because we're getting an increase in expertise and then subsequently the umbral shards. So one of the ingredients that stands out is the piranha teeth. That's because it's an offensive region and it has a use case in the coatings. I think it's actually used in all 3 of the coatings. It might actually just be 2, but that, instead of using the magical creatures or whatever they are, looks like it might be a good shout for something that's going to go up in price, especially early on when these coatings are very highly sought after. So I'm putting my money in the piranha teeth. Again, it might be wrong. Now the piranha teeth are maybe like 15 gold, something like that. I could very easily see that going up by 10, 20 gold. And obviously if you buy a lot of them, then you might make money. So that's just an option. So those are just 5 little tips that I think might make you gold, but I've got a couple of bonus tips that aren't necessarily related to making you gold. Number 1, I think when the new patch comes out that it might be worthwhile actually just making one type of gypsum cast on repeat, and you can do that now basically. So you just pick a slot, maybe it's like the boot slot or something like that, and you're just going to make that cast over and over and over, even if you are currently at 590, because what you're then going to do, once the expertise goes up to 600, you're then going to open them. One, it will quickly get your expertise to 600, and then subsequently you will get umbral shards when you open that. And you want to just do it in one slot, because the higher your expertise is in that slot, the more umbral shards you'll get. Concentrate on one if you're trying to maximize the amount of umbral shards you get from the gypsum system. And one thing that isn't really related to this patch, I think it might be worth looking at the materials needed to create the gathering trophies. And that's because there's some rumors that there's going to be some rare items added to skinning and mining and that kind of thing, but really the materials required for this are quite cheap on the auction house, and if they're going to add something in the future, those material prices might go up. That is a very, very speculative market, though we actually have no evidence to back that one up, but it might be worth just picking them up while they're at a lower rate. So there's 5 proper tips for making gold and 2 sort of extra tips. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Have a most beautiful day. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.